Hi there. So today we're going to share a little bit about the trees, nature journaling with trees, and revisit Hokusai, a Japanese artist who painted ukiyo prints and had exquisite lines. So couple previous videos, I shared a bonsai tree book with you, and I was trying to show how we can study trees from bonsais. And I found this beautiful print of hokusais with a tree, and then looked for a bonsai tree that looked kind of familiar to it. And I can't find my notes, but I'm pretty sure it was a white pine. So obviously you could see Mount Fuji in the background and the different techniques. So today we are going to work on Hokusai's style of tree, but I wanted to show you that a miniature tree, bonsai, can be used to study the trees. It shows the long tree trunk and it actually curving. It's almost like this one is actually backwards a little bit. And then the pine needles in clumps and the way the branching kind of branches off. Um, so if it splits, it's got two. If it splits, it's got two. Here it splits and there's two. I think it's a great way to learn from looking and experiencing. So the book that this came from is Hokusai's 100 Views of Mount Fuji. And what I love about it is that it is in black and white. So I can practice my strokes and see the beautiful refined brush strokes that he has. Now, possibly for the pine needles, which are very circular in his style, and he leaves kind of white. Now, this is engraving. We have to remember that Hokusai drew this, but then it was given up to the printing facility, and the artist had to carve from the drawing. So I don't really print, so the grooving and the style of it can be different. But let's kind of start and kind of learn a little bit again about how Hokusai did his nature prints. So I recommend in my classes uh, the Pentel pocket brush. And this was a limited edition, so it came with a beautiful pattern on it. I think I ordered a couple. It's a medium and it does come with a refill. This is not waterproof ink. So if you intend to use watercolors with it, beware. But what I like about this particular brush is that it's like a sumi brush tip. And it's kind of smaller here, but again, you could buy different sizes depending on your brush stroke. So we will test it and we will see um, what kind of strokes we might want to use with it. Other than that, I really love these preppy pens. They come in different fine calligraphy. And with this, I use the carbon ink cartridges, and they're wonderful. So I'm going to put this picture aside for right now. And I did Xerox the book to copy it, but I give credit to uh, this book. And I don't know who, let's see, it doesn't really say the publisher right here. It says Introduction and Commentaries by the Plates by Henry Smith II, if that helps. But I believe I found it at a used bookstore. Okay, so very lightly, I kind of indicated the tree trunk. So you In traditional Asian painting, you would just use a light ink and then proceed. So what you could do, let me see if I could find it, um, is you could use a gray or sepia ink. So I have different Pentel brushes, and this one is sepia, and this one is gray. So I kind of taped it so I know. So going forward with the gray, it's the same size brush, but it could be lighter. So with no pressure, I would start making marks. And it looks like they're kind of dotted, um, kind of a fine line. And he probably used like one hair on his brush or two, if you think about that. And I think this is really great practice, um, to practice any modified or blind contour drawings, which I think are really important when you don't know a subject, and just practice it. So there's lots of little dots, and dots are used for the eye. Um, the artist kind of controls the eye movement. So your eye follows kind of the dots along the trees. And it could also indicate moss or lichen on the trees. So here is that split. And it also helps me understand the pine trees because the pine trees here are very tall where I live in Florida. And some of them are called the long leaf pine. I'm not sure if they even grew in Asia, but they grow in Florida. And so for me, learning about the tree, it would be mostly like looking up, even though I've done many different pine trees. They're really quite fun to draw and indicate. And you can have some kind of leadway in nature journaling because you're exploring. So I'm just looking, there's kind of like some split branches. This looks awfully dark to me, but I think it's lighter than the black ink. And don't make it, try not to make it too straight. There's going to be some bends in the tree. So there's like branching that's coming up here. And maybe if you're beginning, don't think too much about it, just kind of draw it. I think paying attention to, thick and thin lines are really good. Broken lines are very good. They lead the eye. And then if we think about the pine needles, um, they kind of radiate out, right? And his are very stylized, and you can kind of curve them. I kind of like going top to bottom because then I can kind of curve them. And then what happens is they're usually on top of a branch. But the longleaf pines that grow in Florida, um, the pine needles are much longer, almost like a brush, kind of a brush looking kind of pine needles. Now, his, or the carver, I should say, um, some of them really look like they go all the way around in a circle, very stylized. But if you look at shorter pine needles, uh, they probably wouldn't go all the way, this particular style, anyways. And you want to leave some, maybe, space in between, um, so that the eye can kind of see the pine needles too. So some of it I'm kind of doing what I feel, and then some of it I'm kind of looking at it. But the real bonsai tree, and that's another kind of stylized tree, um, is kind of stylized based on what the artist wants to do. Sometimes they'll wire the tree to contain it, keep it. But what I like to notice is the branching and the airiness. And sometimes from season to season, they may prune it so it may look a little bit different. And to kind of layer them, you just go on top of it. So if I start one, I can still layer on top. And if this is lighter ink, when I would apply maybe the sepia, if I did it all in ink, sometimes I like to use green ink. There's, different pine color inks, which are beautiful. Done that. You go to my website, you can see the different prints of different types of bonsais and trees. And maybe showing some different direction as well. It's like when we draw a flower, we like to show different versions of it. So maybe some are going backwards, some aren't. I'm going to move that aside and go back to this. So what do we see? So we see pine needles behind it. And they seem kind of on top of each other, peeking out from behind the tree. It seems along this part of the trunk, there seems to be some branching. Kind of curves down. So maybe it could indicate. But I often say if you have a botanical garden near you, uh, go go there. If they have bonsai trees, take pictures of them and just sit there and observe and draw them. I always take a lot of pictures of bonsais when I visit gardens, if they have them. They're so much more popular, and they could be hundreds of years old and very stylized. There's different styles. And it also teaches spacing, in your composition, not to overdraw or to um, things, which helps balance when I do other things in artwork. I always think of the space, let the mind wander into the space. So it's starting to fill, and I can always add more. It's a lot quicker than liquid ink or palette ink just to have a quick brush. There's all different brands. I like this type of brand. Um, I've tried a lot of different ones, and it depends how big you want the strokes. If you want finer ones, they make finer brushes, which are nice. So this really clumpy, uh, and a lot of pine trees, if you don't get to see them, they do have textures. Some have really big bark textures, plates like almost. Some are grooved. A lot of people, I think, can ID them based on the bark and the length of the pine needles, and of course, where you live. Um, just trying, okay, I think I'm a little bit up here. So it's almost like, uh, maybe a upside down umbrella. That's how I think of it. But I love the idea that Hokusai could have been along the nature path and draw. He drew a lot. There's a lot of his sketchbooks that you can look up and view on some different sites, museums. So he practiced his drawing a lot, which I really like. Um, I might have a little bit more texture. I hope you're drawing with me, just not watching. I think the experience really helps. So if we have this one, it seems like there's some wild pines needles out here. And if you have pines, uh, the weather permits it. Uh, there's nothing like being outdoors. It's very serene and quiet if it's winter. To be outside and draw. But remember, there's like branches underneath those clumps. So I think that kind of gives me a pretty good feeling of this particular pine. Now, little dots. Even put Mount Fuji in. I'd probably like to finish this other tree in here, but I want to go to the bonsai tree because it kind of represents it a little bit. And for this tree, let's try the calligraphy ink pen, maybe. Let's push that up a little bit. So you can, if you're nature journaling, of course, um, you can observe, oops, the tree. Oops, kind of hard to see with my light. But sometimes I like if this is the center of the tree on the top, and I drew that down and then showed the trunk curving, it would kind of help me. So I know this part of the trunk I started, but then it kind of comes up, and then this would kind of be the center of the top of the tree. So and it can be a very loose drawing, um, especially if you're outside. Time might be limited, weather could be changing. And it's darker when I look on the video camera. It's here. Okay. So it kind of curves, then it kind of curves back. And I think just by, you know, even printing out your own pictures, maybe you have some bonsai trees, um, just look at them and see what you see. Like, sometimes you can't see all the details. And each one might have different personality. This is actually, I like it a little bit higher because it's all kind of one branch. And then these branches kind of come up and they intertwine. So, what do you see about that tree that makes it interesting? This branch was trained to kind of come down here. It's very close to the trunk. So you want to make sure that you indicate that and it just doesn't look like a lump on it growing. So you can kind of see the form of it a little bit lighter. This kind of comes around. I really like this curve. I'm sure the bonsai artist who created the tree twisted it and trained it to grow that way. And the other thing that you can do is, if you need some guidelines, like if I was out in the field, I'd be trying to think of kind of the shape of it. So there's some branching here. This one actually comes up. It's okay to correct, just like writers do. You can correct your. It shows some energy, right? And I think my preference sometimes is to start bottom and go up, and sometimes it's to start up, go down. Try out both. See what works for you. Sometimes when I'm doing an ink pen, it's a different kind of feeling than when I brush, stroke it. It's like you can really see that curve. I'm not quite getting that curve in. And then there's, some texture. These pine needles seem a little bit finer than how they were implied in the print. Just kind of wispy. So love to know if you have a favorite tree. Um, I've always loved trees and the energy. So, two different ways really to learn about trees. Always, studying another artist's tree, but I love the ink. And if you like ink, of course, if you really look at the brush strokes and the refinement and the thicks and thins, um, it should be able to really help you with your pen and ink. So you can really see like the difference in the feeling of the two trees, even though, right, they're represented, same tree, same type. Might be a little bit of shadow in there. So I know on the screen it looks like a much heavier line. And I've got more scratchy lines on the drawing. The thing I notice is the negative spaces. So there's kind of like big space within here, and that helps me kind of navigate the tree a little bit better. So you can see I'm doing a really more of a sketchy drawing on this side to kind of just learn a little bit about what's happening with the tree. Let's look at very different trees. I'd really like to put this other tree back in it. Um, there's a lot of indication of shorter trees still growing in this area, but hopefully this has helped you to understand the two different trees, the two different methods of how I would maybe approach this. And then, of course, I can always go back in with the brush pen. So it just looks so dark there. Let me just raise it up so you can really see that it's not just solid lines. It's actually the ink pen drawing it. But it is much darker. The other choice I can is I could go into a little bit thicker blade and I can balance it, but maybe the lighter, finer strokes against the dark strokes would be enough. And then, of course, I like to kind of show off the bumps into the dirt pot. And you will know when basically you've done enough or you want to stop. That's my problem is it's nighttime and it's got this glaring light. Um, Sometimes it's nice and quiet to work at night, but if you're like me and have some vision issues, it's probably best. But I thought it was quiet and it was a good time to. This has been sitting at my desk for a few days and just really wanted to tackle it. So now the bottom is really popping. And the other thing that you can do, because this is on tone paper, especially if I was out in the field, is use the Presto. It's a little clogged, but I can add some white texturing to it. And I could, possibly break up that really dark branch. And there are some white spots in the mound of dirt too. Just add some texture, especially on the tone paper. You may want to do a value study with it. I'm more of an, I like using ink more than um, pencil drawing. But I am going to be teaching some colored pencils and watercolors in February through Pitt University. If you want to take some classes on Zoom, we're talking 2026 because you never know when you're going to get exposed to this video. See. But if you're enjoying the video and you're getting something from it, please like and subscribe. Let's see, some. Let me know what you're interested in studying. Kind of on a tree kick right now, but it's always good to know what you're looking for. And if you're new and want to learn watercolors, I have a great class I offer on my website, Elaine and Bergstrom. It's watercolors with 6 tubes, and it teaches all kinds of techniques. Um, it's my signature class for a lot of years. Maybe the branches would be darker and the pine needles could be a softer ink. I still feel like it needs words. So I hope that was helpful. Nature journaling with trees, Hokusai style, and bonsai. And hope to see you next time. Thank you.